Chapter 260. Growth. While waiting for the responses from the courts, I worked out hard, read newspapers from all over the world, read books on filmmaking and wrote screenplays. I was all about self-elevating, strengthening the mind and the body. I didn't care about keeping the prison clean. Fuck this prison. See, in the feds, it's mandatory that every prisoner has a job. My job was to clean the microwave twice a day. I didn't even do that. Fuck that microwave. I only cared about keeping my mind and body clean. I didn't care about the TV. I didn't care about visits or mail. I only cared about visiting a free state of mind. The prison politics was played out. I didn't care that the Pittsburgh Crips were fighting the Baltimore Bloods on the yard, or the Pices were beefing with the Bulldogs. I didn't even care if DC was beefing with whoever. I was preparing for the next phase of my life. I was 39 years old and had been in prison for most of it. A lot of prison conflicts are legitimate, but most of them are frivolous. Slaves killing slaves over a slight look, or some worthless canteen items, or jealousy, or a perceived disrespectful action. Imagine a slave with a life sentence being jealous of another slave with a life sentence because one slave with a life sentence gets more mail than the other slave with a life sentence. Imagine a slave with a life sentence being jealous of another slave with a life sentence because one slave with a life sentence gets more visits than the other slave with a life sentence. Or one slave wants to be badder than the other slaves, yet these super bad slaves serving life sentences had never attempted to escape or to kill a slave master. Meanwhile, the slave master just sat back and enjoyed the theater. It was total insanity, and the people involved were insane, including me. The slave master enjoyed the psych show of psychopathic men that didn't give a fuck about anything but getting high in prison politics. They only gossiped about prison drama. My daily daydreaming of freedom and filmmaking sometimes had to be removed, and I had to come down into their mentality because I was in their environment. Once I removed the beauty of life out of my thoughts, even my dreams were in hell. I was always in handcuffs, or on a prison yard, or on a tear, or in a cell. If a beautiful woman was in my dreams, she had on a uniform. If nice shoes was in my dreams, it was brand new prison boots. If nice trees were in my dreams, it was the trees on the prison yard. Incarcerated leaves, incarcerated roots. Chapter 261. Informants. I was now at the point where I was done with drugs. I felt like I matured. Some people matured early, some people matured late. Some people mature after one bad experience, some people mature at a later date. I was late in my maturity, late in my endeavors. Yeah, I matured late, but better late than never. I knew I matured because whenever somebody walked up to me to talk about drugs, I would walk away from them. It made me uncomfortable, no matter who it was that was talking. The drug game was too dangerous now. Trying to pinpoint a rat was impossible. At one time, paperwork would be revealed and everyone would know who was the informant. Now, they didn't have to release any paperwork. So guys like me were getting arrested and not knowing who dropped the dime. Not even knowing if it was your best friend, your road dog, a homie that you would kill and die for, your family. The person that's coming to visit you and sending you money orders could have been the same one that put you in there in the first place. He can't wait for you to come home so he could set you up again. Nobody knew nothing.
Dre, I don't see no one. I'ma circle back. Turning on First and Kennedy. I'm gonna drive back around Rudolph one more time again, Dre. Let's circle up into here and then go on First Street.
Snitches weren't being killed anymore because you couldn't pinpoint who was snitching. And the longer a snitch lives, give other snitches initiative. So my motto was vicious. Just a smidgen of suspicion is sufficient to dismiss him if it's snitching. Listen. The government were paying rats a nice salary to set people up. They drove luxury vehicles. They wore expensive watches and lived in nice homes. They were making it rain in strip clubs with government money. Popping bottles with government money. This was the new hustle. Government money. The new hustle was setting people up and getting that government money. And nobody knew what they were doing. It was confidential. They still sold drugs and still bust their guns. So any prosperity was automatically assumed to be fruits from their hustle. Fruits from their stick-ups. Fruits from their banging. Not knowing that their main income was government money. For sending other people to prison. It was a big illusion. A fraud. A game. And I was being played. I was losing years of my life by allowing myself to be played. Played by suckers. Played by pussies getting that government money. I was aware that these things happen. Even in society, I was aware that these things were happening. But now I was seeing it with my third eye instead of just using two. I was also aware that my case was overturned and someone trying to befriend me could be a possible agent wearing a wire. The government hates when you beat them. Sending someone to entrap me isn't outside of their boundaries. It was actually protocol. Expecting anything less was insane. So whenever someone spoke of crime or drugs or guns or toys, I would look at them as possible agents and walk off. Homie, I was paranoid. Chapter 262. OT. One day while walking the prison yard, a young guy walked past and said, "What's up, OT?" I was stunned. OT? OT? Old timer? Did he just call me an old timer? Damn. I used to call other dudes OT and swore that I wouldn't be an OT in prison. But here I was, a OT in prison. I used to call the elders old timers, but now I was being called old timer. Damn. I'm now an elder. I'm now an old timer. I had transitioned from being called youngin' to being called old timer. This was the worst feeling one could have. It was the feeling of failure. When I was a youngin', old timers called me youngin'. Now here I was in the exact same place I was as a youngin', being called old timer by a youngin'. Damn. I came to prison with no facial hair and a full head of hair. And I was still here with no hair and full facial hair. Facial hair with sprinkles of gray in it and wrinkles around my temples. Eyes getting baggy and every day I grew a new pimple. I felt myself aging. Felt myself getting old. I could feel aches I never usually felt. Irritated by small things like if my name was misspelt. I was doing less on the bar, less on the crunches, less burpees, squats, leg raises, and lunges. I felt myself aging while the world spun without my input, thinking about my mistakes, all the things that I mistook. Shh. I remember thinking that I would never allow myself to be an OT in prison. I would never allow myself to be 40 years old in prison, with my parents still visiting and sending birthday cards and pictures. asking people for flicks to see how the world has flipped, how fashion has advanced, how hairstyles has evolved, how car designs has metamorphosized, scared of anything futuristic. A 40-year-old man sending homemade prison cards to my old 40-year-old girlfriend. A 40-year-old man hustling postage stamps and tobacco. A 40-year-old man making collect calls.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from...
A 40-year-old man going to my cell when I'm told to. Making my bed in the morning. Standing up at 4 o'clock every day for the mandatory stand-up count. Standing in line to be fed. Standing in line early to take a shower before the water gets cold. Standing in line to use the microwave. Even standing in line to use the phone. I went through this from a teen to my 20s and now through my 30s. If I had to go through this in my 40s, I felt death would be more worthy. The baby-faced youngsters saw me as an OT now. They were in the same position I was in 20 years prior. And here I was, in the same position I was in 20 years prior. Embarrassing. Hey shawty, I ain't no OT. Oh my bad, OG. No disrespect. My angry response was from the reality of my failures. It was a glimpse into everyday frustrations of frustrated men who were mostly broke and had failed in life. This frustration was one of the main reasons for prison violence. Failed men hating other failed men. I had no choice but to change. If not, I would be 65 years old going through the same cycles, with everyone calling me grandpa, and living in a cell block for senior citizens. I saw it firsthand. I came to prison as a teenager, and my OTs were in their late 30s. Now that I'm in my late 30s, they were in their 60s. Still here. Old timer. OG. Embarrassment. Failure. The penitentiaries were filled with smart men that were being played by dummies. It was all backwards. I would only go back to hustling if it was my total and complete last resort. I would be taking a step backwards. Fuck the money. I could use my cultivated talents to make money. Somehow, I would put the same intensity that I put into hustling. Somehow, the same intensity I put into working out. Somehow, the same intensity I put into getting away from the cops after a shootout into something legal. Somehow, I was going to make my passion in filmmaking my new hustle. Somehow.